speaking of other rich guys who are just totally nuts because no one ever challenges them on anything. RFK. Now, I want to talk about this for a second because we did a thing a couple weeks ago. What was it on RFK? And RFK did this whole spiel about the COVID-19 virus, right? Was a bioweapon that was manufactured, and it kills mainly white and black people, but it doesn't kill Chinese people or Ashkenazi Jews. And we were making fun of how crazy and racist that was. We do get a lot of views from conservatives. They don't subscribe, and you guys really should subscribe because you can hate us more if you subscribe. But we got a bunch of, and I answered some of these where they were like, why is that racist? How is that racist? How is that racist? And I'm like, how is it racist? I'm like, okay, let me give you an example. I finally had to do this. In Nazi Germany, right, before the war, newspapers there, the Nazis pushed all this stories in the newspapers about how the Polish people were ethnically cleansing Germans living in Poland, which wasn't happening, didn't occur. But they pushed all these stories. Why? To get the Nazi people, the Nazis and the German people riled up that the Poles are evil, so we need to invade Poland. We did the exact same thing with WMDs in Iraq. And a lot of the anti-Muslim shit that was going on here in the United States back in the early 2000s. You remember all that. You couldn't say anything nice about Islam or just say, well, no, most of those people don't hate us. If you'd have said that back then, you'd have been fucking lynched politically. Right? So that's how it is. So that's what he's saying. He's saying the Chinese have a bioweapon and they're working with the Jews. So they're a threat to us. So yeah, it is racist. It's racist propaganda to try and spin us up against the Chinese. Now, the thing about it is the coronavirus is not a bioweapon. It's a virus. Right? It wasn't created in a lab to the best of our knowledge. The best of our knowledge, it formed on its own probably in wet markets and probably a lot of it due to climate change.
Right.
So there's all that. But anyway, we're going to watch some more RFK because everybody didn't believe us, but he is freaking gone. So here's him. He did a town hall on Sean Hannity. Now, RFK Jr. is running on the Democratic ticket against Biden. Right? He's not going to get it. He's not going anywhere. But he's been on Fox News and conservative media a ton. And he's not been on any sort of liberal media. Hardly at all. Other than, people like us making fun of him. So this is him and his Hannity town hall. This is David Pakman. Sorry, this is the David Pakman show. Hang on, let me pause for a second. Come on. All right, so this is the David Pakman show. David's going to kind of get into this. We'll watch some of the clips from this.
In general. In fact, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has been interviewed more on Fox News than the other Republican challengers to Donald Trump. And it's because he serves a number of different purposes, including to appear to generate the feeling that there is more discontent with Biden from within the Democratic Party than there actually is. There is discontent with Joe Biden from within the Democratic Party, but it is not nearly as significant as Fox News would want you to believe by virtue of propping up Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Number of other interesting reasons we've previously discussed why RFK Jr. is interesting to many in right-wing media. Well, Fox News propagandist Sean Hannity gave Kennedy an hour town hall last night, and it is really worth watching because it is a combination of backpedaling, lying, and distorting to such a degree that it almost makes Sean Hannity seem like the voice of reason. When Hannity seems like the sober voice of reason, you know things are getting a little weird. Here is Bobby Kennedy Jr. attempting to backtrack from when he said Jews and Asians don't get COVID as badly as whites and blacks, and that it was a targeted and but. What he has kind of backed up and backpedaled to is saying, I never meant to suggest it was designed that way. It just is that way. Of course, we looked at the
okay, clip. And of course we watched the clip before, and he's talked about it, but we watched the clip before. No, he said it was a bioweapon that was designed. He didn't say, oh no, it just happens that it was that way. And then we could talk a little bit more about this because it's just craziness with this whole guy. I'm surprised he's still around.
We know that that's exactly what he was suggesting, but here is Bobby Kennedy Jr. last night on Fox saying, no, that's never what I meant to suggest.
This is and I was describing a 2021 study that was funded by NIH, that was performed by a half a dozen at least scientists, the three lead scientists from Cleveland Clinic.
Okay, now on this, remember, you all know.
I mean, it's all bullshit. So we'll watch through
already
this.
That this is BS because we talked about it. The study he referenced the next day to try to get out of trouble. If you actually read the study, it says that these differences are so minute that they are not only not statistically significant, but they don't suggest anyone should do anything different in terms of assessing their risk tolerance based on genetic makeup. It's in that study. So even this is already BS, but let's continue.
And I want to clarify this too. When he's talking about this study and stuff, he's already lying. But this was also one of the guys that was against the vaccine or against people taking the vaccine. And he's been anti-vax for the last, 20, 30 years. And he's told tons of lies about it.
And that study showed that the docking site for on the furin cleave of the COVID virus was particularly compatible with certain races. And it doesn't mean that those races disproportionately died, but chiefly with people of African descent, right? Next of Caucasians, least of all people from Finland.
Now, I want to clarify this because this is important. Why is it that black people per capita died the most of COVID? Right? Predominantly because what country had the highest death rate? The United States. Who per capita is one of the poorest groups in this country? The poorest group? Black people. Who were the last to get the vaccines? Who were the last who were the ones who still had to go to work during COVID?
Right.
Who were the ones that didn't get as many benefits? I mean, Trump dropped the ball on COVID, but yeah, it did. You always see this whenever we have any sort of disaster or economic problem. Who gets hurt first? Poor people. And black people per capita are poorer because of, 4 centuries of slavery, a couple centuries of segregation. I mean, we've been through this whole thing before. So the idea that it's like, okay, yeah, more people died. It's like, oh, great, Bobby, that's fucking genius. But you're missing the reason why. The reason why isn't because it was designed. Go ahead.
Are there circumstances, that are relating to it? Who still had to go to work? Who has how much access to health care? Who was able to, get the vaccine first and or last?
Mm-hmm.
Who had access to health care if and when they got COVID, right? Those are all huge factors in it that he seems to be just happy to ignore.
Right. And he's talking about whites after that, but what type of whites? Lower income. The ones who had to go work.
Right.
Now, why aren't we mentioning Hispanics so much in this? And the reason is because a lot of Hispanics in this country are immigrants, and a lot of them didn't report it because they're afraid of getting deported. And we had that whole deal at the border where we locked down the border during COVID. So, I mean, this is all just horseshit to spin. I mean, we'll watch a little bit more of this.
And people and certain Germanic races.
Oh boy.
Jesus.
And ethnic Chinese were also the least or less
This is a mess. This is a mess.
acceptable and Ashkenazi Jews.
All right.
There's no suggestion ever that somebody designed it to be that way. That it was designed to preserve certain races. It was not suggesting that.
Right. Now, that's actually exactly what he suggested. He
It
then
is.
backpedaled and said that's not what I meant to do. But that is exactly what he suggested. And that explanation,
It was.
that explanation's...
That was exactly what he said. You remember that from a couple of weeks ago. He exactly said this was a bioweapon designed to do this. So we'll skip ahead a little bit. Let's see if we can get to some more of this town hall shit, because this is just craziness.
You use the design of agreements.
So Ukraine to appease.
Oh
Putin-
shit. Okay, let me qualify this one. So this was Ukraine. His whole thing on Ukraine. This is how crazy this guy is, which goes back to the whole, when you're a rich kid growing up, I guess you can just be nuts because somebody else is always there to clean it up for you. He thinks the United States forced Ukraine into war with Russia because we want to go to war with Russia, which is insane. Ukraine's at war with Russia because Russia invaded Ukraine.
Right.
Putin invaded. If we really want to go to war with Russia, why aren't we at war with Russia? We could just go right now. We could be. Why aren't we giving F-16s to Ukraine? Because that would flip the war pretty quick.
Right.
You know, why did we vote against Ukraine joining NATO? Why? Because if Ukraine joins NATO right now, then NATO's at war with Russia, which means we're at war with Russia. So this whole thing about Biden and the government wants to go to war with Russia, we've been doing everything we can to avoid a war with Russia right now. Why? Because they have nukes. And millions would die instantly. I mean, it wouldn't be a long war, but it would be a freaking devastating war.
Right.
So this is just total insanity that he thinks that we're trying to go to war with Russia and we pushed Ukraine into this. That's fucking insane. If we needed a reason to go to war with Russia, we already have a bunch. We could just go right now. The problem is that nobody wants to, and I would, it's not to say that's a problem. That's probably the best solution right now, is to not rattle the saber. But geez, I mean, this is how nuts he is. But listen to this.
rather, who I think is evil. They've already given up Crimea; it was annexed. So what? They have to give up the Donbass area.
The Ukraine, because of our pushing the Ukraine into the war on two occasions,
We pushed them into it, or the Putin?
Well, let me tell you. Let me answer your question. In 2019, France, Germany, and Russia all agreed to the Minsk Accords. That year, Zelensky ran for president. He was a comedian, he had no political experience. Why did he win? Because he ran on one issue, signing the Minsk Accords. As soon as he got in there, Victoria Nuland in the White House told him he couldn't do it. Then Putin sends 40,000 troops in. That's not enough to...
Crowd's dead, by the way. Crowd has no clue what he's talking about.
Yeah, this is all fucking nuts.
He wanted us to come to the negotiation. He wanted somebody to come to the negotiating table. Zelensky came to the negotiating table, signed a new agreement that was the Minsk Accords 2 in 2022, and that would have allowed Donbass to stay, and Lugansk to remain as part of Ukraine. We said, Putin signed it, Zelensky initialed it, and Putin, in good faith, began withdrawing troops from the Ukraine. What happened? We sent Boris Johnson over there to torpedo it.
Nope.
Because we don't want peace we want the war with Russia.
So the crowd liking the idea of Biden as the warmonger, right? That's the only part they react to. We want war with Russia. It would be impossible in this segment to unwind all of the dates.
Yeah, I was going to say, and we're not going to go through it either, but everything was bullshit that he said. None of that is even remotely true. And frankly, you know, it's not something we're going to sit here and deal with on this show. I mean, because this is not a show where we talk about international politics. Not unless it's a financial thing. But yeah, so that's it. So for all you guys who got pissed at us about ripping on Bobby Kennedy for being a liar and a racist and a nutbag, you can comment below, baby. If you don't like it, come on the show and we'll debate it. We can talk about it. We invite people all the time to come on the show. No one ever takes us up. Everybody always chickens out on us. So, anyway.